Hello and welcome to the Journal podcast from the Chartered Insurance Institute, a place for thought-provoking discussion from the world of insurance and beyond, giving CI members and the wider profession an insight into key developments across the sector and the work of the CII, a professional body that's dedicated to building public trust in the insurance profession. I'm Tim Groves, Programme Development and Partnership Manager at the Chartered Insurance Institute. And today I'm lucky enough to be speaking with Mandy Hunt, who's Managing Director of Shape Underwriting and Chair of our Underwriting Community Board, and Laura Hancock, Managing Director of U-Tree Underwriting and Chair of the Broking Community Board. Here's my conversation with Mandy and Laura. Hi everyone, and thank you so much for joining me on the podcast today.
Hi Tim, thanks for having us.
Good morning.
So another very big successful BIBA this year. Fortunately, I wasn't able to go, so I'm going to get just as much from this conversation on finding out on what I missed this year. So looking forward to hearing from you both about some of your highlights and feedback from the event. We've got a number of questions to get through, so I'll dive straight in really. Mandy, what were your initial thoughts from this year's BIBA? Did it meet your expectations or were there any surprises at all?
So I was really excited to go to BIBA this year, partly because we were relaunching our new brand, Shape Underwriting. I was really keen to connect with the different people that had stands there this year in terms of other MGAs, providers, data and insight through to some of the network, ICANN and Empower and things like that. So I think I had a lot of excitement about going because I was interested to talk about our business. I was interested to see what they were all doing. And really, I think that BIBA just delivers every year and it gets a little bit bigger and a little bit better each time you go. And I think everybody that gets the opportunity to attend is left feeling kind of excited by what the next 12 months are going to look like for you, because you can start to connect with loads of different people. And I think that kind of meaningful conversations was a really big output for me from this year's BIBA.
No, that's great. And it must have been extra exciting, like you said, launching the product as well, not just being a visitor this year, but...
Yeah, it was really exciting. Yeah, it's good. Yeah.
Lots of balloons on your stand?
And cupcakes. A lot of cupcakes.
Yeah, amazing. I missed it all, gutted. and what about you, Laura?
I've been going to BIBA for so many years now, and I think I've done maybe over 20 on the trot now. I've never missed one. So I'll echo what Mandy said, that the conference gets bigger and better every year without any question. And your question talks about initial thoughts and meeting expectations. This year's BIBA just went so fast for me. Like Mandy, we had a lot going on in our own business. We just completed our own MBO. So we had our stand there. I was talking on a panel session to other brokers about that. I was hosting a fringe, lots of meetings. So the whole thing went really, really quickly. However, it did feel like it was all stepped up a gear because, as Mandy said, there were so many extra networking opportunities this year. So the Women in Insurance, which I'll touch on later, the Women Insurance Breakfast was amazing. And it was the first year of running that. There were just so many kind of events going on around the periphery of the main conference that, it was brilliant. There wasn't one thing I attended or event that I was part of that didn't feel really, really worthwhile. So it was just such a whirlwind. It just absolutely flew by.
I wonder in the future it'll start being a week-long event rather than just 2 days.
Well, it did used to be longer, but people used to say it's too much time out of your own business, which is probably true. But the pace that the world is evolving and the changes and things that you need to be at the forefront of are so vast at the moment that it just feels like we just need to come together as an industry if we're going to make sure that we're moving at the pace we need to.
It sounds like it's constantly moving. I mean, obviously I missed this year, but the last few years I've been so impressed. It is like a whole package. You're not going there just for one purpose.
Exactly. And the old days, it did used to sometimes feel like a bit of a sales thing. You're there to try and make contacts, increase your business. But now there's so much more good happening around the edges. Like I say, the Women in Insurance thing, the ICANN presence there, the young broker focus. And there's so much development opportunity for people that it's almost like we need to declare an insurance national holiday to let everybody go. But we run a business and we want as many people to go as possible, but we can't let everyone go. So it just feels like everyone who can should take the opportunity and go because it's such a great opportunity.
Yeah, and I think something stood out for me is how appealing it is and how visited it is as well, not just by people in broking, but underwriters, claims, and actually the networking that goes on between them as well, which is so important. So I think it's great. So did you get much chance to talk to other people? I was wondering what kind of feedback you got from other attendees who were at the event, overall value, what they found were the best pieces of content that they learned or anything like that. Mandy?
So there was a boxer there, wasn't there? I heard a lot about him, of good things, and I think his story really resonated. I think I'd probably reiterate a little bit about what Laura said in terms of the young professionals. I think the young people that we had there were getting their first taste of what those kind of events are like. what they might learn, who they can talk to. And so they loved the openness with which everyone was there and happy to talk to them. I'll leave Laura to talk about the Women in Insurance breakfast, but fabulous, absolutely fabulous. And I really would love to see a bit more of that in the future. And I think the other thing that collectively a few of us all said is, in a funny way, as rushed as it was, it also in the conversations didn't feel rushed. It felt like people had created the right amount of space and time to kind of do the nice parts of a conversation and then the business parts and kind of the next steps. So whilst I was meeting different people, I didn't feel rushed through any of that, which was really good. And I had the opportunity to whiz off and do a podcast as part of the CII on vulnerability in the middle of it. That hour that I was gone, it didn't seem to impact because it was just well planned. I think the young professionals, the women in insurance, and then the time, I think people got that pacing really well this year for me.
No, great. What about you, Laura? What kind of feedback did you hear from others?
All the young people I met who were involved in the Young Professionals Day were just blown away by it all. And I was lucky enough to be able to give someone in our team here an opportunity to go for the first time. And she was just blown away. Even going to the opening address and hearing Graham on that huge auditorium stage is such a professional event now. It feels like you're part of something really exciting. And then straight after that, you go into the political panel. You have Penny Mordaunt and others there just talking about kind of world politics and the impact on our world in the insurance industry. So, yeah, I love it. I always have done. And I've watched it get bigger and bigger every year. But I'm hearing people for the first time going, just feeling so much more buzz about their jobs and about being part of our industry post-conference. And again, yeah, we joke about the boxer. Everyone wanted to see Anthony Joshua. He was a huge draw, but people got so much out of that and the Gareth Southgate session. And then there's the political sessions as well. And then there was more kind of technical stuff. So there really was something for everyone, even if you're not into sports or whatever it was. And I'm not just saying this is me, I'm saying everybody I spoke to. There is not one person who said something negative to me about that conference. And as Mandy said, it was impeccably organised. So I was able to go to all the things I wanted to. I had to turn down a few insurer requests, but that's because there was just so many people there. But it was incredibly well organised and well thought through.
Yeah, I was thinking then about how if you want to attract people into our industry, send them to BIBA rather than work experience, actually. Send them to BIBA first, give them that real excitement. And I do know that BIBA are doing now, aren't they? Are they inviting school age people in? Was it Thursday?
Well, they have done. They did last year. They had some students there. I think, to be honest, before you've started in the industry, it can be a bit, they don't understand the world, do they? But people who are in their first year or in apprenticeships or in future leader programs or in any of those things, coming to the conference really does just rubber stamp what you're involved in, what you're part of.
Oh, excellent. Okay, so looking at some of the main themes of the conference, I know AI and data were some of the major talking points. So what were your thoughts on how BIBA demonstrated the evolving role of AI in insurance broking and maybe any practical applications that you saw that stood out for you at all?
I mean, AI is a talking point everywhere you go, isn't it? And I think what came across to me was, whilst we talk about it a lot, there's still a lot of work to understand how we can use it in the industry to best effect. There are obviously individual stories. RSA have talked a little bit about how they're going to try and get quotes out in 30 minutes. And obviously that's all around how you put stuff in a system and get stuff out, and AI, machine learning, and we're going to be part of that. And there were lots of little parts of that journey. We certainly met, 2 or 3 people where we were like, we're going to talk to you about what you might be able to help us with. I think one of the things for me with AI is we can all see the user cases. I think that's a real given. It's just taking the leap to being really confident in that they're going to work. And so what I like is when I hear people talk about the stepping stones rather than one big leap, because I think there are parts of using AI which could be absolutely amazing. But the reality is we just need to tick some things off and do it really well, because the worst thing we can do in using this stuff is get it wrong. And then people lose confidence and heart what it's delivering. And then you have a negative impact and you're trying to backtrack. So in terms of what we're doing, I think the fact that people were talking about little parts of their journey using AI is a good thing for me.
Great. Thank you. What about yourself, Laura?
Yeah, I've got a couple of points under this heading, actually. So I was on a panel session called Broker Choices, where we were talking about brokers' strategic choices in what they do with their businesses. Do they sell up? Do they get investment? Because we've just done our MBA. And one of the things we talked about was how you evolve a business so it can thrive without needing to sell. And of course, technology, data, AI was a big part of that, and how you have to evolve to keep at the forefront. And if you don't, you will fall behind and find yourself getting more and more sluggish. And it was interesting. We talked about it and I talked about our journey in that respect. And after the conference, I had a call from someone who I know in the industry who's just working on a project to talk about AI in insurance broking. And he rang me and he was very, oh, but what, you can't trust it. And what about if you put stuff out there and it gets out and it gets leaked? And it was very defensive. So it was really interesting to me that we're there talking about the importance of evolving our tech strategies in businesses like ours and in all brokers and insurers and the wider industry. But yet you still got a tranche of people who are frightened of it and scared of it. So I think Mandy's point's really good. We're all on this journey, but I think organizations need to take control of their own strategies and lead their people rather than letting them all go off in different directions, because you've got people at the older end of the spectrum who are scared of it, don't understand it, think it's going to change the industry for the worse. And then you've got younger people who are more open-minded. So yeah, it's a fascinating subject. My other point on it was I sent some of our people off to one of the sessions, and I didn't go to this session, so I'm not going to speak with too much knowledge about what was actually said, but they all came out fearing for their futures because they were basically told that the AI and technology is going to make the underwriters redundant. So that was an interesting angle on it. I think the truth of it is we're in the middle of a massive evolution of technology and AI and all of that stuff, and we're all just finding our way. So it is interesting, and it's down to the leaders of organizations to embrace it, to be open-minded about it, but also to allay fears and to lead their people through it, because it is just such a fast evolution at the moment.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Because none of us are experts in AI. There's a few people that are. And so whatever they say, we tend to go along with. And some of them are saying different things. Some of them are saying, yeah, it's going to take your job. But I don't know whether that's just a shock strategy to make people realize how big this is, because it's still their professional opinion, isn't it, overall? And there's no evidence. Interesting. I'll just use this as a little bit of a plug, but we've got our Shaping Future CI conference in October, 1st of October. And AI is going to be one of the main themes. And we've got some experts coming to talk to us about what changes we're seeing already, what changes they're expecting, but also the afternoon is going to be focusing on what can professionals working in insurance do with their own skills and behaviors to actually make sure that they are valuable or more valuable in a world where there is AI, rather than replace it, upskill in certain areas where it's a different role. So that'll be really interesting.
It's exactly the point, Tim. The upskilling thing is absolutely vital. You've got the people who are a bit stuck in the mud, who are refusing to even look at it, are going to get left behind. And that's what I mean by the organizations need to lead it. They need to upskill people. They need to widen people's thinking. But yeah, it's an interesting time.
Yeah, it is definitely right. Okay, I'll stick with you for the next question, Laura, because obviously the CI Broken Community, which you've been the chair of the last couple of years, we run a fringe session on the Thursday at the conference. Just wondering if you could tell me a little bit more about what happened and what you learned from the conversations at all.
Yeah, absolutely. We get the opportunity to have this fringe session every year as the CII Breaking Board, and it's a huge privilege to get that stage because every year we've had amazing conversations, and this year was no different. So we had a panel of Lee Cheeseborough, who's the CEO of Movo, which is a network of appointed representatives. We had John Miller, who's the Chief Client Officer for Partners and we had James Alate, who's quite senior in a network business. So we had a really good cross-section of people in the broking sector, and we were able to talk about how professionalism can help brokers to win and retain clients. So we wanted it to have a bit of a sales edge, because brokers at the moment, they need to combat the soft market, a very competitive landscape, a sluggish economy. So there's lots of factors working against brokers at the moment, and we wanted to use the session to empower brokers to feel like they could go back and really kind of push on in their own sales effort, but doing that with professionalism kind of underpinning it all. So we had an amazing conversation where we talked a lot about the role of the broker as the professional advisor, the role of chartered status, corporate chartered status in that, and about really elevating the profession of broking above the sales aspect, because quite often we get caught up in we are selling a policy and we've got to be cheapest, and it gets a bit kind of icky at that end. So this session was all about how you elevate that and how you become more than just an insurance salesperson, how when you're working with customers, with businesses, you become their sounding board for all sorts of things in their businesses. So you help them with their own acquisition strategies, you help them with their contracts, for example. There's just so many different ways. So yeah, we had a great conversation. The room was packed, which was brilliant because it was last knockings on the final day of the conference. So I thought everyone might have been a bit fed up and gone home by then. So I was really pleased to see a full room. We got loads of questions. I think Chris from the CII was there, so he was able to kind of see the enthusiasm around the topic and the interest that we had. So yeah, it was a very lively session, and I hope it came across well.
Great. Okay. Well, yeah. So Chris Shadforth is a comms director. You just mentioned. Yeah, he was there and he's written an article which will go in the journal, which comes out in about 3 or 4 weeks. So that'll be a nice sort of couple of page feature. So brilliant. Well done. Well done. And thanks for doing it again for us this year. So Mandy, if I go to you then, from an insurance professional perspective, what do you think were the most valuable opportunities at BIBA?
So I think the networking is kind of a given if that underpins everything that you do there, and the opportunity to catch up with friends and create new relationships is really good. I think what I really liked this year was that there was more of a balance in stands in terms of MGAs, providers, networks, broker networks. And so there were just different levels of opportunity to network. A lot of the time, for many years, the big insurers took all the space, if that makes sense. And now there were more opportunities. Laura's stand was great. What we saw, Peach were on there, for instance, and they had a great stand. You could see the networking going on. So what we started to see was the whole industry kind of having a fair spread of representation, which I think was really positive for my opportunity, I guess, in having moved from a really large insurer to running these MGAs. It's really important that you can see that whole market dynamic, and then you can start to, to Laura's point on AI, build your technology platform because you've got loads of insight around it, build your training program because you've got things around it, think about your employee resource groups because you see people like I can. So what I spent, the next day when I got home, I was going, oh my God, we need to do this and we need to do that. And there's this and there's that. And what it kind of just does is help you with your kind of strategic thinking as well as the tactical things you might want to do. So for me, they were the valuable opportunities. It wasn't necessarily in every individual conversation. It was the collection of ideas and actions that came as a result that can really help you drive your business forward. Driven, I think, predominantly by the fact we had such a variety of stands there this year.
Well, that's a great answer. Thank you. And Laura, what about yourself? What do you think probably the most valuable opportunities?
They're endless because they genuinely are. And I reflect back on just what I did, and I know what people in my team did as well. And we had meetings with all of the insurers that we wanted to. And as Mandy said, sometimes it was really nice that some of the more fringe insurers were there as well. And we were able to see them because you see the big ones all the time. So networking, phenomenal as always. I think the quality of the speaker sessions and the seminar sessions was absolutely top class. I think the opportunity to go and choose and see who you wanted to based around your own interests was great. It wasn't one overriding theme. It was just, if I'm interested in politics or I'm interested in the economy, if I'm interested in regulation, there was someone there. We were able to go and talk directly to the FCA who had a stand there, which was amazing. We had a couple of issues. We had some great conversations. We've moved some things along with them, the opportunities for young people. And yeah, I want to mention the Women in Insurance Breakfast because this was something I think Emma Chapman and Vanessa at BIBA pulled together. First time it's been done. And there was a great spot for it with the kind of bar venue adjoining the conference area. And it was one of the most inspiring mornings. It was just brilliant. The room was packed. It was absolutely full. And I know this is a kind of less serious point, but it was full, it was colourful, it was happy. There were just so many people there who were wanting to chat to each other. There were young professionals and people who've been in the industry a long time, cross-section of people from insurers and brokers. A brilliant panel session that touched on lots of issues that women face in business generally. Great opportunity to network afterwards. So that was amazing. And I know Graham's the CEO of BIBA and he was told he wasn't allowed to go along to it. It really was a women-only event and it was absolutely fantastic. And so I hope to see that evolve and continue, although I'm not sure it needs to be better than it was. Endless opportunities, as I say.
No, that sounds great. Yeah. And I think for any professional females who are listening to this and maybe haven't been, then actually that sounds like a highly commended piece to go along for.
Yeah, and it didn't just touch on the gender piece about being a woman in insurance. It touched on ethnicity. There was some inspiring speakers from Africa. There was the charitable element. There was a lady, Karen, who's on the BIBA board, stood up and spoke about a charity who provide work clothes for women who've come from kind of domestic abuse or all sorts of bad backgrounds who are trying to get back into work. So the whole thing just had a thoroughly uplifting vibe to it. It was brilliant.
That sounds amazing. Yeah. Did you go along to that, Mandy?
I most certainly did. Yeah, no, I would absolutely concur. You want to hear gender talked about. You want to see an equal playing field. And sometimes in your own environment, that maybe there's not as many women or there's not as many opportunities. But when we just put the power of all the women in the room, and particularly the ladies that spoke from Africa, I mean, I thought their stories and their humour and their approach to life was just the kind of thing that just meant if I could listen to them every morning before I started work, it would be a really good thing. But it would also remind you of the power of women in the industry. And like Laura said, from junior to senior, from not a lot of experience to maybe more experience, the power that we can all kind of bring together when we get behind something is just enormous.
Yeah. And it sounds like not just women in insurance, but women generally. Sounds fantastic. I'm really pleased, actually. And I was just thinking, I worked in broking and we wear so many masks, don't we? Trying to fit in with people, whether it's in the sales role, whether it's with colleagues, and to actually be able to be in a room and an environment like that, where actually you can be completely 100% yourself. That sounds really inspiring.
The whole new podcast, that one that you just said.
Watch the space. Okay. So I guess I was going to ask the last couple of things really was what would be your key takeaways from the event?
So I guess AI definitely was a big topic. I think one of the things that I heard from a couple of the young people is the impact of our industry beyond. So when you can get celebrities and you can get former MPs and people in lots of different industries talking, and when you walk around the room and go, oh, that's a data company or that's the RAC or whatever it was, companies that people recognise, but they don't necessarily realise have such an impact in our industry, I think to the power of the industry came across. And the other thing that I heard, the importance of the regional broking market. You know, we do talk about a London market quite a lot. Absolutely amazing place to be and be part of. But the regional broking space is such an important area. And I felt like there was lots of people trying to reach into that this year and make sure they made the most of it. And I think that's really powerful and really important.
And about yourself, Laura, your key takeaways?
Yeah, it's difficult because there's always so many every year. And obviously there's lots of good subjects discussed in all the various events going on around the edge of the conference. I think probably the most important one for me is for all businesses to allow different people from their organisations to go to this conference every year. I saw this from a couple of angles because I sit on the Anglia committee for BIBA. I've got a young lady in our business who runs the young broker ambassadors for our regions. And we often see reluctance from companies to allow people to go to the conference. And I know there's a business need where you can't just let everybody go, but I think it's really important that you rotate those people who do go to give people the opportunity, because I've said a million times already, this thing is such a good opportunity to learn, to grow, to develop, to realize what you're part of, to get you excited about what the potential of and the reach of the industry, to understand that our industry is talking to government, talking to policymakers, talking to the regulator, shaping access to insurance for people with disabilities, with cancer. You just suddenly realize that you're part of something much greater than what you see in your day-to-day work. So I think I'll make that my biggest takeaway this year, is to implore other businesses to encourage different people from their firms to go along.
Yeah, no, that's really interesting. And I know obviously, like I said, you can't send everyone from the office, whether you want to or not, and even if those people want to go. But do any of the sessions get recorded and then BIBA members are able to?
I think some of them do, yeah. Some of them do. And that goes some way to sharing some of what happened, but it doesn't beat the buzz of sitting in the auditorium and the lights and the setup and not everything, but they do make you feel part of something really powerful. So maybe we should all share a bit more of that content a bit more widely in our firms, but nothing beats the real thing.
No, I totally agree. I remember the feeling, the main auditorium last year was fantastic. And you just felt like everyone was connected in that room. And it was a lot to do with well-being and overcoming adversity with some of the speakers. It's hard to explain, really.
Yeah, the last couple of years have been really good on the mental health side as well. They've talked a lot about that. There've been some amazing speakers. So yeah, as I say, there really is something for everyone.
Well, I've only got one question left, really. And this was, I don't know whether you can answer this or not, because you're telling me how amazing everything is already. But if we could suggest something for BIBA 2026, have you got any thoughts or ideas on what you might change or what you might add or at all? Any thoughts, Laura?
Well, no, not really. Nothing was bad. There was nothing that was a waste of time. Nothing was not valuable. I know how hard that conference team worked to make it the event that it is. And I know how much feedback they get from the market before they put things on. So all I would do is implore that they keep that Women in Insurance breakfast, and hopefully we can watch that grow every year, because I thought it was an amazing addition. But genuinely, there's nothing that I wanted that wasn't there.
Great. That's really good to hear. So make sure Graham Trudgill listens to this podcast and there's all these great things. And Mandy, what about yourself? Any sort of thoughts on what you might change or like to see next year?
I'm not sure I would change anything. I think the only thing I'd love us to start talking about, and I think this is an industry thing, is customer vulnerability. But that's a topic, nothing to do with the infrastructure and the approach. But I think the FCA are bringing more guidance, more kind of focus on vulnerability. Everyone knows I have a husband that is vulnerable in the way we would define it today. I think there's a long way for us to go as an industry to really deliver in that space. And if there was one topic I'd love us to talk about, and that is all I'm talking about, a topic, that would be it. How do we make it better for people that have got various vulnerabilities, and we can all learn from each other, because sometimes you might only have one customer a year, or one customer a week, and so it's not like we can sit there and just go, oh yeah, we get that. We need people to help share stories and deliver. But yeah, that's a topic. The rest of it, to Laura's point, was brilliantly done, and they really pull the stops out every year to make it a really valuable event. So yeah, keep going, really, more of the same.
Well, you've given me an idea now. Maybe BIBA next year we could have these virtual reality experiences of what it's like to be a vulnerable customer, to have a certain condition and actually feel and see it. Maybe that's a suggestion for next year, possibly.
Also, we could maybe run something on vulnerability there next year.
Yeah, good call.
Well, as always, I love speaking to both of you, whether it's on a podcast or just one of our community board meetings. Thank you so much. It's been really good talking to you. Great conversation as always. So thank you very much. And I look forward to seeing you both soon and chatting about our next theme or topic.
Brilliant. Thank you, Tim.
Thanks, Tim. Yeah. Thanks, Laura.
Thank you so much for listening to this great episode of the Journal podcast. You can find useful links in the show notes and also related articles on the Journal's website, along with any further podcasts. Please do like and review and subscribe. And until next time, thank you very much and goodbye.